Thank you. This is called being on the spot. I found out at 9 o'clock this morning I had to be up here. It's the first year I thought I wouldn't have to do a damn thing at this meeting, but we're going to see what we can do. Speaking of being on the spot, I thought I'd share with you an incident that happened to me several months ago, and some of you have heard about it, so I might as well tell you the rest of you the story so you'll get it straight from the horse's mouth. I came home one night, and my wife said, "Belinda's with a young man in the living room." And my daughter's 15 years old. She hasn't bloomed yet. She's still a little girl to me. So I said, "She's with a boy?" And she said, "That's his car out there." I said, "Oh, fantastic." So we were worried anyway, you know. So I went in there and I was expecting somebody looked like Bill Miller. His hair sticking up and pimples, sort of like, "Gah." So I go in there and here's this goddamn fox sitting there. I mean, this guy's open shirt, hair, I said, well, I'm going to handle the situation diplomatically. So my daughter says, "Dad, I'd like you to meet Ken." I said, "Ken, it's nice to meet you." And down deep, I was thinking, he says, "My name is Kent." So I said, "No shit." He came back once more. That's another long story, but we haven't seen him since. We're very fortunate this morning to have 4 excellent meeting planners. And if we totaled up the amount of money they represent in their various meetings, it would be astronomical. I'm going to introduce them to you one at a time. The first panelist is known as the Howard Cosell of the meeting planning industry. She is manager of meeting services and exhibits for the American Gas Association, handles about 250 meetings a year. Been with them for 28 years, Dolores Harrington.
Thank you.
A man who's still fighting the Battle of Atlanta. He moved there from White Plains, New York 3 years ago. He's manager of special activities, the General Systems Division of IBM, handles many meetings a year in a lot of our hotels and a lot of our competitive hotels, Mr. Jerry Demery. I first met this next panelist when she was with the American Association of Museums, and I thought I was going to be finding an old fossil. Instead, I found Jane Eyster, who is now with the Institute of Scrap Iron and Steel in Washington, D.C. The next gentleman plans 700 meetings a year. In almost every one of your hotels could be a candidate for some of his meetings. He couldn't make it in the hotel business 9 years ago, so he became a meeting planner. He's a graduate of Michigan State, Doug Heath. These are very elementary questions in some cases, but we purposely got 4 very opinionated panelists who are going to tell it like it is. So, with that in mind, Jerry, what's the best way for a hotel salesperson, one you have not met before, to get in to see you?
Well, I'm pretty easy soft sell on that. I like to be able to describe to the salesperson what we are trying to accomplish. I think you can go through any sales file from any hotel, wherever we've been before, and the real meaning of what we're trying to accomplish to our attendees at any particular meeting cannot be read through a file. And that's the reason that I will take the time to sit down and talk to any salesman at any time, just really by a phone call, as long as my schedule permits, which I really try to make it go that way, so that I can explain to the individual, to the salesperson, what we are trying to accomplish, what our file. And that's the reason that I will take the time to sit down and talk to any salesman at any time, just really by a phone call, as long as my schedule permits, which I really try to make it go that way, so that I can explain to the individual, to the salesperson, what we are trying to accomplish, what our requirements are, how much of the ballroom we have to use, what our demands are in housekeeping, the back of the house, the front of the house, to try to make them understand what we need and what we want and what we demand.
Jane, can you add to that, please?
I think that I'm going to put a little bit of a damper on the two previous answers to that question, or at least what Dee and Jerry both did. You probably, as a cold call, somebody who I do not know will not get in to see me. One way that you can sort of ease the situation a little bit and your chances will be greatly enhanced is one, if you have Bill McCall or somebody from the Washington Regional Office call me and say, Jane, I think this is a hotel that your people would enjoy using. Another thing would be not to call on me on Monday or Friday. I represent a small, but I would say probably a typical small association. We have 13 staff members. With only 13 staff members, we wear many hats. And because of this, okay, Monday is a terrible day as far as mail arriving in the association is concerned, and I can probably spend Monday doing nothing but answering mail. Friday is a heavy production day, and I can be licking labels, doing anything. It's a busy day also. So the middle of the week is a good answer, or you've got a better chance. Also, if you're arriving in town, if you check the file and check with Bill McCall and you see that I have typically, traditionally, historically, a meeting every mid-April, July, October, and when my annual meeting is in January, you're better off not trying to see me the week prior to those meetings because I just really don't have the time to see you.
That's very interesting. Monday or Friday? No wonder I never was able to get in to see you. By the way, Jane's meetings are kind of interesting. Besides her annual, which is what we call a Sun Bunny convention, they always have to go near the Sun Belt. She has these 3 board meetings each year, and the board meetings are 200 rooms. So it's a nice piece of business. And thank you for Washington, D.C. this summer. Doug?
Well, I have to touch on what has been said before about national sales. We've got a little different setup in that we have multiple people running meetings. And some of these people need to talk to certain people and others don't need to. And I really think that it's important that national sales understand the type of business and who's handling that specific business so that we're not seeing every hotel person that comes in if they don't relate to that specific need. And also, I think that the hotels that we do work with ought to let national sales know that we're working with them so that they aren't sitting there being very embarrassed finding out that we've got a major convention when they never got a copy of a letter or when they were in, nobody mentioned that they called on us.
Well, you as meeting planners, do you take it on your own to notify national sales when new meetings are coming up and tell them how to do business with you, or do you lay back and wait for them to come and try and sell you something?
I think I lay back because, you know, it's hard. Who do you call up? And, you know, what do? Suddenly go through the HSMA directory and Bob's called on me for a number of years, and after he comes in and asks where the gifts are for his kids and we talk about what's going on, you know, it's interesting because we want to know where new hotels are going up and where changes have been made, and a lot of times that's the only way we find out about them, and also the potential of have we added new conferences or meetings that would go into a particular area that we might not be aware of, so therefore we wouldn't call like Hyatt up and say we want to book something in Phoenix if we don't know you have a hotel there.
Jerry, when you first came to Atlanta, you had to educate us though, because you moved the division down there and the regional offices and the hotels had to start all over from scratch with you. Isn't that correct?
Yes. In fact, you were in Atlanta at the time, and we spent many hours together trying to educate the hotel as to what we're trying to accomplish and what our requirements are as far as space. And this takes a great deal of time, and it takes a very keen ear from the salesperson to not block out his mind and think of other associations or other corporate accounts on that he's dealt on before, but he's got to come in with an open mind on what I'm talking about and how we're trying to accomplish what we want. Too often, many of the salespeople will try to relate to past experiences or just automatically assume a particular thing, and the assumption is wrong. And that's one of the things that turns me off.
Well, I hope you're making notes. Dolores, what can a salesperson say on a telephone that will motivate you into giving them an appointment?
I think primarily it would be that they've got something new to tell me, something new to sell. Perhaps they are even, let's say, new with that particular property. They may be with Hyatt for some time. But for this morning, I'll give you a perfect example. John Marshall, we just happened to get chatting at breakfast, and John started talking to me about Maui. Now, I found that extremely interesting, and sort of the wheels of thinking have got grinding, and I thought to myself, you know, we haven't been to Hawaii. It would be the type of spot where maybe I could convince the executive conference to go there. But, you know, tell me more, John, send me material and what have you, because we kind of had a ban on Hawaii. And I think it's kind of reminding me that you were there, reminding me of maybe new things you're doing with the hotel, perhaps an expansion situation, an improvement in perhaps your overall services. And I do like to meet people face to face. I know a lot of names, and this may sound like, you know, a four-person bouquet for regional offices and for Bill McCall, but it is our mode of operation. The regional offices are supposed to keep us up to date, but I still like to see people personally. And I would just like to make one other point where Jerry talks about knowing who to look for in an association. As Bob might remember, when we moved from New York to Washington, they created a meeting services department. And before that, we had, like, let's say 15 major conferences a year. We had 15 staff people being called on by hotels individually. Nationally, in other words, all the national chains, they had 15 people traveling around to see hotels. That is no more. As much as we look for one-stop shopping for you, it's one-stop shopping when it comes to our office. So that, in other words, I'm supposed to be the fount of all information, quote unquote. But so this is why I want to see people, and I want to learn. I want to know what's going on.
Very good. Doug, what are your views on getting in to see you?
Well, I think that you've got to sell something that I need, and I think too many people that make calls try to sell me on something I don't need or don't understand what I'm in the market for. I differ from the other three in that if you want to come in and tell me about your new exhibit hall, I don't really care because we don't have exhibits. And very few people realize this when they're putting things together. And so if you're going to call me up and say, I want to stop by and show you these new floor plans on exhibit halls and everything, right away I don't even want to talk to you because you don't know who you're talking to. So it's, again, know what I need, not what you think I need.
Okay, I'd like to throw something out on the table, and that is your attitudes towards direct mail and solicitation letters.